name Osome is my name. A wildlife conservationist and the founder of Wild Now Foundation, which is an organization centered on wildlife conservation with the inclusion of young people. I grew up in Laikipia County, and I think that's where my journey in conservation started from. My family has been very much involved in conservation since I was pretty young. And I particularly remember my mom reminding me about, we would have family prayers, and she would mention almost everybody's name. And I would cause a tantrum if she doesn't talk about why aren't you praying for the cats, the dogs, the animals. So when I think about that illustration, I always think, okay, it's something that has been ingrained in me since I was very young.
I joined this journey while I was a student of environmental education at the University of Zambia. I was inspired to study environmental education and understand the relationship between humanity and the natural environment because of my background. I grew up seeing wildlife around me. I grew up interacting with the natural environment, and therefore I had questions arising from why the relationship between humanity and the natural environment kept on changing.
My name is Lucy Warwenge. I'm a Kenyan woman. And I would say I'm a person who's passionate about providing opportunities for people and exploring knowledge to enable people to understand their environment and their context.
With my skills and background, the experiences to found the movement first in 2018 in Madagascar, later in 2019 in Cape Verde, by engaging local activists and young women leaders with the common goals toward gender, women and climate change.
I've been working on the issue of climate change since 2009. I have been motivated because I've met incredible women out there who are very supportive. We share insights from different perspectives, and that keeps encouraging me every day to work on.
My name is Agnes Mokami. I come from Kwale County, south coast of Kenya, and I engage in research of biology, specifically at the Institute of Kenya Marine Fisheries Research Institute, KEM3, and I also undertake volunteer activities in the community, specifically creation of awareness on conservation matters and the blue economy sector.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Tullojo, and I'm a city girl who first experienced nature's beauty on a university field trip 18 odd years ago. A city girl who turned her angst against the careless waste management practices of fellow city dwellers into a passion for connecting young people to powerful behavior changing information. I did this first at primary school level at AWF's African Conservation Schools program, and then at university level at ALU School of Wildlife Conservation, which develops current and future generations of Africa's conservation leaders.
My name is Winnie Sengwer. I have a third name, Jepto, but I like Winnie Sengwer because Sengwer identifies with who I am as an individual. I come from the Sengwer indigenous community, who are forest people, and their way of life is in the forest. We are hunter-gatherers, and we do a lot of conservation in the forest.
I started my conservation career in 2008, and I received my PhD in zoology from the University of Oxford in 2018. My career in conservation began with a look at carnivore conservation, and then it evolved to focus on community-based conservation. I then formed my conservation organization called Wildlife Conservation Action in 2018, and we are focused on building the capacity of local communities to better coexist with wildlife and protect wildlife, and while they improve their livelihoods in this changing climate.
My name is Pauline Owiti. I'm from Siaya County, the Western Kenya, and I am an agronomist and community change agent. I'm passionate about climate change and ocean conservation. So currently I initiated an organization called the Poly Foundation. So the Poly Foundation deals with training farmers, basically small-scale farmers, on organic farming practices and agroforestry.
My name is Elizabeth Guitare Metaro is a recent acquisition by virtue of marriage. I am Kenyan. I am the quintessential village girl, as it were. I grew up on the slopes of Mount Kenya, and I do remember one of my earliest memories as a child is walking out of my grandmother's house. I see the elephants and I scream, I say, "Elephants, guys, we have elephants." And I realized actually I can merge my love for environment and my love for law to create something, or to create a skill set and to create a service that would help us as human beings and as a country to essentially live in coexistence with nature.
What motivated us to start conservation through public health was based on the experiences I had working as the first vet for Uganda Wildlife Authority, the first veterinary doctor, where we investigated a skin disease outbreak in the then critically endangered mountain gorillas, which was traced to people living around the park who have very little health care. And that made me realize that you can't protect the gorillas without improving the health of the people who share their habitat with these critically endangered species. We also strengthen community-based healthcare and teach community health workers to do conservation work. We work closely with communities around the park, getting them to prevent them poaching and collecting firewood in the forest. And one of the ways that we do it is through our alternative livelihoods program, Gorilla Conservation Coffee, where we work with coffee farmers living around Bwindi National Park, which is home to 43% of the world's endangered mountain gorillas. And often when I'm going to check on the gorillas, we cross coffee farms, and I came to realize that these coffee farmers were not getting a steady market or a fair price, and we needed to find a way to support them.
And when I got started with my conservation career, there were very few women that looked like me, and I struggled to get mentors and role models. And so I began to change that and became the role model and mentor for young girls that look like me. Women are disproportionately affected by climate change, especially here in Africa, because they depend on farming and natural resources for their livelihoods. So as an African woman, I understand that, and I can work with these rural women to come up with more sustainable solutions to the challenges they face.
I started focusing officially on conservation when I was in high school. I was the head of the environment club, and it's where I noticed that there was a gap between wildlife conservation and youth involvement. The government noticed what I was doing, international organization wanted to be involved, but this was just Some. This was just Some doing her thing with her love for animals. Right? And I realized that a lot of young people would want to be involved in that. And they thought it was an organization. So why not give them that platform to learn more and be part of the solution, right? So I launched Wild Now in 2019. It's been an amazing 3 years. And in 2020 is when there was an announcement about the management plan, the KWS management plan. So we petitioned in Parliament. We got a few young people to also be vocal on the issue on social media. And a couple of weeks later, it was tabled in Parliament and we were called to officially petition, which was a success.
So when I was growing up, I studied maths and computer science and statistics. That's what I majored in all the way to my master's level, including geographic information systems, which are systems that help you understand the geography of a place using statistics, to put it simply. But I know what intrigued me, because I loved nature and the environment, is that we didn't know enough from a factual perspective to inform the decisions we were making. So I've always been curious to use knowledge and facts to inform decisions. But I found that being able to use numbers and use the analysis of numbers to understand the trends of our wildlife, the growth or depletion of our natural resources, the trends of change over time. So I feel very privileged coming from a place where I thought I wasn't going to be a person who makes significant impact, and started as an intern and now as director of the African Conservation Center. It's really a journey of knowing that there are possibilities And those possibilities are not limited to what we believe about ourselves. And that those limiting beliefs can be barriers, but they can be overcome.
My biggest motivation came from just looking at all the violations that are happening to the Sengwer. And there was need for someone to be the voice and someone to step up and to speak, to be like a spokesperson and a representative of the community. We come from a very conservative and cultural community where women are not expected to be speaking so much. Women are not expected to take leadership roles. Women are expected to stay in the kitchen, collect firewood, collect water, and cook for the family. Where does this place men? Men are expected to make decisions. Women have been left out. But we all know that when you make decisions for me, you leave me out. So that is what was happening in the Sengwer community. What I have done personally as a young girl is take the knowledge that I've collected out here back home.
So what motivates me to do what I'm doing is my passion and the fact that I've met people that are also motivated in the field of climate change and environment. So apart from that, I also have other things I'm involved in, like in ocean conservation. I'm part of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Youth Policy Advisory Councils, where we have come up with 2 policies. One is on the Seabed mining campaign. The campaign is aimed at reducing seabed mining so that we could conserve the marine ecosystem. We also have the Global Blue New Deal. Apart from that, have been involved in climate change initiatives and also campaigns. One we did in Nairobi called the Africa is Not a Dumpster, and that was aimed at reducing the plastic pollution that was coming from the US.
Okay, what motivates me is the impact that I create in the community. I can see a change that is directly taking place in the community because of the information I've passed. My experience in the blue economy in Africa really is one area, bringing the experience that I've seen taking place. I've experienced these things. I've seen the community, how quickly they adopt this, how quickly they don't adopt this. I would say that experience is what I would bring forth to that discussion, because we can sit at the table and make a decision for people and we don't understand specifically what specifically they undertake. Being in the field of field that is dominated by men, I have undergone a lot of challenges, and such challenges include, I would say, first of all, harassment. Maybe not sexually, but harassment. We would be able to go for a meeting, and because most of them are male, you're not given a chance to contribute fairly. Or even when you're going for things like a meeting or conference, well, if everyone at the panel are men, it is very demeaning that we don't get a woman out there. And another, lack of mentorship, because there are not very many women in that area. You lack someone who can actually be mentoring you in that area, someone you can follow, see what they are doing, or follow them in that area. And also it makes the area become for the tough people who have been able to overcome this. They feel intimidated, but they have been able to stay longer and also overcome it.
I have faced many challenges being a woman, but actually when I first started out as the first vet for the Wildlife Authority, they'd never had a vet before, and so they weren't quite sure what a vet is supposed to do. Because, with wildlife, you're supposed to leave them there. If you have a sick animal, it may be the next meal for the lion, so you shouldn't interfere. And so they were trying to understand my role. And so I spent a lot of time explaining that. But in the process, it enabled me to gain a lot of respect. A lot of people respected me because I was the only one who had that expertise in the organization. I know it was a very male-dominated field at the time. Most of my colleagues across the continent were men. There was one woman, female vet in Kenya, Dr. Elizabeth Wambua, but everybody else was male. And so it was a very male-dominated field. But I guess people respected me because I brought a unique expertise to the organization.
I think when you look at it through the lens of challenges that women face breaking into environmental law, I must say that I was incredibly fortunate to be taught by women in my undergraduate studies and women who were in the environmental law field. So I did get an exposure to environmental law, but an exposure through the female experience, right? All people in the field, in terms of environmental law, not even environmental law, conservation and land law, and how those two things interact and affect societies, were men. So that was a bit difficult, and it really helped me earn my stripes, in the sense of get good at what I do and create meaningful impact, going forward. Yeah.
Some of the challenges that I've faced, especially as a lady in the conservation industry, it took time for me to be able to know that I need people to work with. It's not Some doing this alone. I need a whole community behind my back. Number two, it's okay if something doesn't go right. And number three, failure basically means it's not your thing, it's not something that you're supposed to focus on, or it's something that you're supposed to do better. So when I learned all this when I was running Wild Now, it changed the whole game of how I'm going to do Wild Now.
So I think one of the challenges, one is self, in being able to really be confident that your input matters, even though no one may actually fully solicit it from you, but you can find the ways to weave in what you need to say. So I think that was one of the challenges. I think another one is that women, once we get into families, we do get other roles that occupy a lot of our time in our space. So in as much as we're giving our best to the work, we're also giving our best to 10 other things. And so we're not able to grab the opportunities when they come, because we're weighing, should I do this now? Or should I wait until my kids are older? And for me, I know one of my challenges was even my own progression in my career.
Looking at maybe the 3 points that I can bring up that can help break the bias in that area. First of all, is creating a system, like a system that is able to give a chance for the ladies in case of anything happens. Because I would say I've met ladies in the same area that have been sexually harassed by their bosses who are male in that field. But where do you report in this? It's a whole government office, but there's no a reporting office. So they feel intimidated to go in that area. Like ensuring that when we say that there's when we need a third of the women to be participating, can we really ensure for like every panel that we are giving the opportunity that they are women? If we have people that are going to the field, can the women be participating? Because I also get excluded going to the field because they're like, you might not do much in the field anyway. And I have so much energy. You guys are very good at organizing. I'll be able to do these activities. I've had experience. So don't sideline me because I'm a woman.
As a young African woman, I've been able to bring different perspective, especially those from the local people, actually the grassroots people, to the international platform, because I've interacted with them several times and have known what their needs are and what their ideas are. So going to international platforms really gives me opportunity to represent them and talk out loud their ideas and whatever they want to be communicated.
So the unique perspective that I bring as a young African woman in the conservation industry is one, I believe there is power of working with communities themselves. And why I say this is because Wild Now Foundation, we are centered in also understanding the knowledge that the communities have had in terms of conserving the environment. I believe they are the custodians of what conservation really is.
As an African woman, I feel the unique insights I bring to the table is portray women and vulnerable communities facing climate change, not only as a victim, but as a provider of technical and practical solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change.
What is the perspective that I bring into that discussion? I think one big thing that's clear for all of us is that Africa is on a development trajectory. Most African countries, 50, 60 years after independence, have come of their own, have clear policies, have enough technical capacities and sometimes quite a bit of resources to really now grow in an exponential way. And what's becoming clear is that even as we develop, if we're not mindful of how our development integrates with sustainable management of our resources, we will have more exacerbated negative impacts from climate change.
My next is the fact that I am a hunter-gatherer. I am indigenous. I have to stay true to my indigeneity. So I'm like, if I must speak on matters conservation, on matters conserving biodiversity, on how to challenge, on how to do climate justice, I had to step up. We want to ensure that nothing about us without us has been ticked. Like if this conversation is about funds for climate change, indigenous people on that table. So how do we do this? Ensuring that this very strong network in the grassroots is women-led and they have no outside influence. So that if decision is being made in the women network, it's women saying this and that and that.
Some of the things that are needed to break the bias: dream big and be willing to follow your dreams, be willing to challenge the status quo, and be courageous and inspire others.
Advice to the young ladies is always to try out something new and leave the old ideas behind. Embrace other people's culture and be ready to learn.
There is absolutely no reason to tone down your femininity. You don't have to wear pantsuits to be taken seriously as a leader. You don't have to shave your head to be taken seriously as a leader. You can lead in 6-inch heels and red lipstick. Number 2, that is very closely linked to asking for permission, is walk into rooms boldly, knowing and 100% convinced that it's your right to be in that room.
When we are conserving the natural resources, when we are conserving the lands, the waters, and the forests, and everything else that belongs to the natural environment, we need to have the indigenous women at heart, because the rural women are the ones that are the primary users of the natural resources. They interact with the natural resources every single day. They depend on the forest for their wood, for everything that they need to do simple tasks at home. Therefore, the destruction of these primary resources affects them greatly as women. So as we conserve, we should always remember we are doing it for the masses, we are doing it for that woman in that indigenous landscape.
At the global level, I discovered that most of the African women are not there to talk about their stories when it comes to issues of climate change, issues of biodiversity. So I feel that we should be better organized as Africans. I feel that we should be better coordinated so that when we get there, we will be able at the global level to present one voice.
And when the opportunity presented itself, I prioritized women for programs that would set them up for success. Why did I soldier on? Because Mother Nature needs female intuition. It needs our empathetic leadership and our unique perspectives on environmental issues that primarily affect women and their children.
The second thing women should do in these spaces that we are thriving to try and get into is to bring other women. If you have a space that you've been called to speak, a panel you've been asked to contribute to, a discussion that you're bringing in some perspective, look for other women. It could be a woman you're mentoring, or it could be a woman who has a similar passion or interest or expertise in that field. And I think if we women would do that, the world would find that they actually want more of us on the table, because we will make a difference.
My name is Elizabeth Guitare. Let's break the bias.
My name is Sengwe Rini. Let's break the bias.
My name is Pauline Awiti. Let's break the bias.
I am Lucy Waroinge. Let's break the bias.
My name is Agnes Mokami Morioki. Let's break the bias.
Hello, my name is Some. Let's break the bias.